Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. My guest today is a businessman who is an experienced hands-on managing director operating within the franchising sector. He heads up Mojo Publishing, the franchisor of Raring to Go magazines and websites. They are known as the go-to guide for you and your child, and a network of amazing local magazines and websites that helps local families have fun. He's known for his exuberance, passion and enthusiasm, all of which he injects into Raring to Go and their amazing people. He's focused and driven to guiding Raring to Go to grow and develop into an exemplary franchise system. He is also the driving force behind the Italian Job event, an annual fundraising driving event which takes minis old and new across Europe to Italy and back once a year. He is a mini nut, and since 1990 the Italian Job has been responsible for raising in excess of £2.9 million for children's charities. In 2021 he was awarded an MBE in New Year's Honours List for services to charity. An amazing story, and I'm truly delighted to welcome Freddie St.George to the podcast. Freddie, welcome, mate.
Sam, thank you very much. What an introduction. I mean, I could go now because there's not a lot left to say, I don't think. But no, brilliant.
Mate, listen, we've met recently, and I've listened to a little bit about your story, and we sort of had a chat over a coffee, and I'm so excited to have you on and share your journey with the listeners. So, look, mate, we're going to sort of delve straight in if we can.
Of course.
Listen, start just telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business journey, where it all started.
Well, it started back in the late 80s. I'm a Brighton boy, born and bred. Lived in Hove, actually, at the time when it was a separate town. But Hove boy. Yeah. School and sixth form college in Brighton and Hove, Carl Newman School in Baswick for A-levels, and then off to uni. Went to Sussex. Yeah. And I got the opportunity to transfer across and do an Erasmus course over in the northeast of Italy. My family's Italian, so my name's Freddie St.George, which is as pretty much Anglo-Saxon as you can get. Yeah. But half of me is just raging with Italian blood. That's my mum. She's Neapolitan. So I went to university, did business economics, perfected my Italian, always spoken Italian with my mum, but it was a brilliant opportunity. Came back, didn't know what to do, so I started working with my mum. She had a business in Burgess Hill at the time, and it was really conference and group incentive travel. So it was all organising events and congresses around the world, and it was really exciting. Yeah. And then I just happened to be involved with a gang of guys in Brighton. We met in a restaurant called Topolino's in Hove. Used to be on Church Road, now Fatto a Mano, and we just got chatting. And one of the guys said we should do something. They'd just done the Beaujolais run. We said we should do something, and I had a minute at the time because I was a poor now, not just recent graduate with no money. Yeah. And we decided to, between us, there's a group of people there came up with the idea originally. My idea was to take it back to my university town in the north of Italy, in Trento, up in the Dolomites, which is a part of Italy no one in England knew at the time, and probably doesn't really even know now. Sure. And that's how the idea of the Italian Job was born. I took it to my mum, and in classic passionate Italian style, she said, absolutely, wow, fantastic. So we just cobbled it all together that first year, and we were overwhelmed. We had 55 teams that first year, and that was like a press release. Back in the days when a press release, Sam, was a typed letter. You put in an envelope and you send by post, and then maybe 3-4 weeks later you go to W.H. Smith, trawl through every motoring magazine and find a press release has been printed and my name's in there. Happy days. And, amazing. And it was a cascade, and it started from there. Never had any intention of carrying that forward. So the Italian Job has been a massive, massive part of my life. So since 1990, the first Italian Job, only 3 times have we missed it. Once in 2010 when one of my mum's brothers passed away, and there was no way we were going to be getting involved in anything like that then. And of course the last 2 years during the pandemic has absolutely kiboshed us. But every year since we've done it, and I mean, I'm going to talk about it passionately and tell you how amazing it is, but you've got to really do it to believe it. It really is just great fun.
You know what? It was one of them. I mean, we sort of spoke when we first met for a coffee, and you sort of reached out and we was having a chat about it, and you were telling me. And for me, I've told you about my love for Italian food, wine, culture. I got married in Sicily, so
Absolutely.
I've got being half Greek, Cypriot, just that Mediterranean culture very similar. And I could tell like that over that coffee, the enthusiasm you've got for it. But just I went home and said to my wife that night that I think I met this guy Freddie. He's almost created this event. I think it's just for me. Like he's created this event because what a brilliant experience it looks like, and minis I love, and but travelling around it and the different places. So you showed me some of the photos and stuff. Amazing.
I mean, early years, Sam, it was all old minis. I mean, there was no new mini at that time. So this is 1990 to 2001, and it was a real fly by the seat of our pants kind of thing. There were no mobile phones, there were no GPSs. Literally gave you a leaflet with an exploded view of a city somewhere in the northeast of Italy and a little pinpoint that said "See you here," and that was it. Everybody arrived. We had a service crew. Service crew would follow the event down, and if they happened to pass you on the route and you'd broken down, they'd fix you. Otherwise, you'd have to get to the hotel. So we've had guys who phoned up from a telephone box on the side of the road in Innsbruck, three good hours drive from Innsbruck to Trento, saying we've only got first and second gear. So we said, well, look, do your best to get here, boys, and as soon as you get here, we can fix you. And they drove for 6 hours, first and second gear. It must have been a killer. I mean, 6 hours in a car, first and second gear, hard shoulder on the motorway, getting stopped every few miles by police, and when they go through tolls, eventually got there, and gearbox out, sorted the problem, and away we went. But no sat navs. I mean, it was a challenge, a real challenge.
I can imagine.
No little voice telling you you've gone wrong, turn around when you can. It was like, didn't we meant to go past Leon? No, what we do, halfway to Spain sometimes. So, it was amazing.
It's crazy, isn't it, when you sort of look back at them type of thing. Like we take it so much for granted now, don't we? You just get in and you press your button, and last time you ever looked at a map, I remember even like moving on, you sort of used to print stuff off, like I'm only going back even before like the sort of sat nav, but I used to print off like instructions, and you'd have it next to your seat, you're reading what, turn left there, right, where are we going there? Not reading, So
I used to drive up to London, and I found months ago my old A to Z in the office. Every second page has got a little post-it note, and I mean nowadays and rightly so, you shouldn't use your mobile phone when driving, but back in the day I was forever looking down at my lap, turning the page because I had to go to the next page. I remember back in the mid-90s there was a guy in the Italian Job, a guy called Daniel Chick. He's sitting in his Mini one morning, must have been 94, 95. He had a laptop on him, and I went up to him, I said, "Oh, Dan, you're not supposed to be working, it's supposed to be..." And the laptops were like the size of like small cars within the Mini. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I've got this thing called Global Positioning Satellite." And I went, "What the hell is that?" And he showed me, and there's a little thing, a little flashing icon on the screen. He said, "See that little flashing?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's us." I said, "That'll never take off, will it?" Now, you don't get a radio cassette in the car or a CD player in the car, but you get an all singing and dancing sat nav. So much easier.
But it must be fascinating, and I'm sure, like, because I know you sort of mentioned to me about, the people that have done it right from the start, and then some of them, their kids are doing it now and stuff like that, and what an amazing thing to do. But some of it, like, you guys must all sit around, especially, you turn up at a place in Italy, you're sitting there having a glass of wine, and the stories you must have, like, these type of things over the years. Incredible.
I mean, situations and events, driving down, incredible. Again, back in the early days when it was classic minis, 4 gears in a classic mini, so 70 miles an hour is top whack. And you got these huge Pantechnicons on French motorway. Sometimes we went down through Germany. Always rains in Germany whenever we go. I can't help it. I just associate Germany with rain. And you got these Mercedes-Benz in the day unrestricted autobahns travelling down 140, 150 miles an hour. You're putting along in minis. Not a lot of fun. But then the mountain roads up in Trentino, up in the Dolomites, just to die for. Absolutely brilliant. And since then, the event's evolved. We've embraced technology. 2001, the new Mini came along. And BMW Group have always been massive supporters of the Italian Job. They were involved with Rover many, many years ago, for the old Mini. So, we've, we've taken the new Mini since 2001. And the journey itself is easy in a new Mini because it's a slightly more comfortable car. But the whole emphasis on the Italian Job was fundraising, so that doesn't really matter, Sam. If you're driving a Bentley or a Rolls Royce or a classic Mini or a new Mini, it's still just as hard for fundraising. So we've always tried to motivate our teams to do as well as they can. Always been children's charities. So our strap line, which wasn't even a strap line, this is how long ago it was. I feel so old now, but I was 20 when I started this. When it started, our strap line was raising money for children in a fun way, and we've just, and I feel honoured that we've been involved in an event that's raised. We're 17k short of 3 million now, so that's our next target. And if the pandemic hadn't happened and we'd gone the last 2 years, we'd have been screaming forward now. So, it's
just it. I mean, that figure alone is phenomenal. But it's interesting, for me, you're saying at that young age, at like 20 when you sort of started it, but because there's then to start something like this that obviously you sort of said, because you said you come back from Italy, obviously your mum had her own business, so I guess that entrepreneurial sort of spirit, I guess, or you've been around business people running businesses.
Yeah,
from a young age.
I have to be honest. I mean, I'm the front man for the Italian job. I'd like to say the pretty face of the event, but the real brains and the genius and the driving force is my mother, who's now 88. And still as fierce. And Sam, you know Italians.
Yes,
so
mate.
My mother is a classic Southern Italian powerhouse. Still, I mean, she's at her desk in her office from 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock. She stops for an hour at lunchtime because she loves to watch Heartbeat, but that's the only time she stops.
Love it.
But she is the driving force. She's the one that does all the research, creates all the itineraries, liaises with all the teams.
Amazing.
Really, encourages for fundraising. So initially there was a gang of people behind it, but then clearly, it was a huge commitment after the first year, and suddenly their interest waned. So we said, no, I want to carry on with this, and I was in love. I'd been in love with the Italian Job film, which was kind of an inspiration since I'd first seen it. Didn't quite get it as a kid, because it's when you watch it as an adult you start realising, certain things about it are not particularly okay nowadays. But it was, that was the love affair with the Mini, Italy.
Oh, mate. Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, it's just an amazing story. Like I said, and it's so fascinating to listen to you chat about it. But also, like, obviously the fact that you do it with your mum as well. Because family, like we
proper. My mother always either called me Federico or Frederick, never Fred or Freddie. She kind of still scowls when someone calls me Freddie. But no, she is. Even now today, we're going in May for the 22 Italian Job, and we got other events that we're planning throughout the year as well. And I mean, I you mentioned my MBE earlier, but she was awarded hers before me, and I was just absolutely chuffed for my mum, an Italian living in the UK for 50 plus years. To have been awarded that MBE was just such a proud moment. But I mean, it's so fulfilling. So fulfilling.
I can imagine. Like I say, it's just a fascinating event as a whole. And I'm keen to just I guess with just you as an individual, like I say, it's great to talk because you can tell about the enthusiasm. But just from you, like what. Because obviously, as well as the Italian job is almost, it sounds like you said, your mum's the sort of driving force behind it and sort of planning. But you're obviously Mojo Publishing and that over the years. So growing them businesses, did you think I'd always want to run my own business from a young age? Like even going to university and stuff, was that your mindset coming out of you?
Yeah, I think my mother thought I was going to end up going into accountancy. Her mother, my nonna, was convinced I was going to become a priest. I think I told you that before.
Yes,
that was never going to happen. Good, solid Roman Catholic family, but that was not ever going to be on the cards. And equally, become an accountant. No offence to any accountants out there, but it just wasn't me. And I think the flexibility you get with being in business for yourself means that you can then, you're never pigeonholed into one single thing. So I've got interest in various different businesses, from design and print, obviously franchising with Mojo, IT, digital stuff. And those are things that keep us really, really busy and happy. One thing I have learned, though, is that I do a lot of stuff okay, and I really, really want to be doing a few bits, but really, really well. And it's that being stretched all the time. But Mojo came about, and there was a direct correlation with the Italian Job. A guy that I'd met in the early 90s on the Italian Job, became friends. We bought Mojo together, and that business grew and was born. And Mojo has become my main business interest now. And we produce these magazines raring to go in 32 printed areas around the UK, and in 52 other areas digitally around the UK. And we're kind of punching quite nicely above our weight. And again, it's been a tough 2 years. I think anyone listening to this podcast is going to deny that. But what's really impressed me is that my franchise network have been absolutely stunning in terms of the way they've come together. They collaborate and they all pull together, and there is a genuine stream and culture of generosity of spirit within our network, but within franchising generally within the UK. And I wish I could stand in a supermarket and grab the tannoy sometimes and say that franchising really is a very interesting opportunity for people to get involved in business ownership. And you just kind of instantly eradicate some of the risk. It's not suited for everyone. And we're really selective about what, when we bring people into our network, to the extent that we involve our existing franchisees within that selection process, because we know they work tightly and closely together.
Because that's really interesting. Because then again, we sort of mentioned, we'll sort of come into it a little bit later as well about culture, but because I was part of we sort of spoke offline. I said I was part of the Tony and Guy groups as a franchisee. I'm really interested to find out about from a franchisor's point of view. You obviously you start that business and you've got a model and a culture that you create within your organisation, but then that's got to filter out, I guess, to the franchisees across the board, everyone's got to buy into the cult, or do they? I'm keen to find out, is it that they start their own franchise and then with that franchise, that's their job to create the culture within there?
No, it really very much is a collaborative approach. So early on in our discovery meetings with our new potential franchise owners, I like to call them partners, to be fair, because we work in partnership. I say, if you bring to me your full commitment, I'll double that back from head office in terms of support of what we do. And I guess people listening to this might think, well, yeah, that's easy said, but actually it's the only way to do it. I'll just give you one old story from franchising. I think for me, if someone mentions the word McDonald's, which we all know is a franchise, I think of three things. One of the Golden Arches, Ronald McDonald, and the Big Mac. Now, the Big Mac was an idea that came from an existing franchise owner of McDonald's back in the 60s. He went to his region and said, got this idea for a sandwich, why don't we do this thing, we double it all up and we call it a Big Mac. And initially they kind of poo-pooed it and said, never fly. We're known for burgers, for quarter pounders, cheeseburgers and fries, etc. They trialled it, found it was an incredible success. And so a third of their kind of global recognition is down to the idea of one of their individuals from within their franchise. And that's always inspired me. And I think that, we hear these stories about people with open door policies. Come and talk to me, give me your ideas. But actually, we've had our little Big Mac moments within Raring to Go. We run a series of localised awards amongst our individual territories. And that came from our Raring to Go Warrington franchise, who piloted it and said, this isn't a bad idea. So we looked at it, listened to it, went with it, put a bit of effort into it in terms of coming up with iconography and stuff that we could roll out across the network. And it's proven to be a really successful element. So we've got a franchise council, so there are 7 individual franchise owners who sit with me. At the moment, we're still doing fortnightly meetings, but previously it was bi-monthly. And every strategic decision that we make in the business, I kid you not, I run by them. Wow. We had a rebrand in 2018, and as the business owner, I can say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I don't like this, I don't like that. And I know what would have happened. I'd have gone to the conference the following year and said, hey, everyone, here's the new logo branding that I've created for Raring to Go. And they would have gone, great, that looks nice, Freddie. As it happens, that was in 2018, conference, I made all the franchise council members stand up. I said, these are the guys that have created your new branding. People were almost crying, Sam. They were standing up and applauding and saying, well done, fantastic. And it was a lot of effort, because anything by committee is 10 times more complicated.
Yeah, sure.
10 times different, 10 times more opinions and views. And that's how we do things now. So, for example, as soon as the first lockdown came during the pandemic, I said to the council, right, what do we do, guys? Here are the options. We can close up and go say goodbye and then come back in whenever this is all over, because we all thought it was going to be over in a few weeks, but as long as it didn't. We can look at reducing all your expenditure because your incomes are seriously affected. We can do various different things, and we decided as a council. And what's great is then they roll that out to their colleagues within the network, and it's peer to peer. And I buy into that 100% all the time. And so we knocked our license fees down by over 50%. We kept the light burning. We kept the business rolling. We went from print magazines to digital only, and that then developed a whole range of different opportunities for us that we've now discovered and we're capitalising on. And what we did, which I thought was really brilliant, and this was our suggestion as a council collaboratively, was to go to all our advertisers and say, right, listen, we've got no cost of production now. Your businesses are on their knees, as is ours, but let's see if we can't keep that little bit of a light flickering in the distance so that people can still know that the soft play centre in Bury or Bolton or in Aberdeen, is there and looking forward to coming back. And I said that I think that will generate massive goodwill, and it's coming back to pay us back in spades now, because those activities throughout that pretty much 18 months initially was just so tough. But and this is what I'm so impressed with Raring to Go and the magazine editors and the franchise owners, because they are just fantastic.
Wow. There's a couple of bits I really want to touch on, and one, the first bit, it strikes me that by doing that and being inclusive and getting people involved, that it's almost like that you've created a form of family environment within the company. What I'm keen to try and explore is that something that comes because of your Italian background and maybe the way you are as a in your personal life and importance of family. I know that it is important to you, and obviously within the Mediterranean culture, that's that big thing. So do you take some of that into the business world and what you've tried to create with Raring to Go in a franchisee?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the days of boss in the office with the office door closed and make an appointment with his PA to speak to the boss are long gone. And generally there is, even though we're not physically face to face with people, haven't been for the last 2 years, we've been absolutely accessible and approachable. My family background makes me more predisposed, I guess, to wanting to be a more familial feel within the business. The core essence of Raring to Go is we're the go-to guide for families with children. So I think we've got to kind of have a community sense and spirit within the network, and it works. And I've just got a very simple I've got a load of simple theories because I'm not a complicated man, but for me it's the path of least resistance. So for example, with that rebrand we did in 2018, I knew more or less where I wanted it to be. So I'm starting here and I want to get to there, which is directly above. Now with the council I had to do a zigzag route and it took a bit longer, but we got to the end destination. It wasn't a million miles from what I wanted, and that's how it pans out. And by including everyone within that process, it's just everybody, every stakeholder within the business gets involved. Our franchise owners took those ideas home and showed their partners and their families and said, "What do you think?" And I encourage them, send them out to your best advertisers and see what they think. Amazing. And it really is just a harmonious. I like to think there's a little kind of a vein of harmony running through the network. Always ups and downs, Sam. You've got a collection of people all together. There's never going to be harmony 100% of the time.
Of course not.
In the main, it kind of works, and it's and I'm looking forward to moving forward, and the digital side is going to make a big difference to us now. But we are ink on paper, effectively. That's our flagship product, our magazines. And that communication, that community feel with our advertiser base. So we like to call ourselves local business champions and local family champions. So for families in an area where with such a diverse range on the financial kind of affordability factor, if you like. So we want to offer everybody within that local community an opportunity to do something fun, enjoyable, relaxing with their families that doesn't have to cost the earth, and that's where we kind of fill a nice little niche.
It's quite, and it's because obviously again we spoke a lot about in the digital print and arena as I am with Sussex Business Times, we've done the same. You sort of with the magazine, you went purely on digital, but it does open some other options and other doors. And you look at very similar actually. It's really interesting to hear because very similar. We did at that point. I remember with SBT reached out to a lot of people and said, look, what can we do to help you? And come, we can, like you say, that, and by helping and building that community, that, and then when you do come out the other side, people remember that.
Absolutely, I love that. Not that idea of paying it forward a little bit, So we were in a privileged position that we still had a voice. It was digital rather than print. And we wanted to use that voice as effectively as we could. So we teamed up with the Children's Activities Association, which is a nationwide network of activity providers for young kids. And of course, all of their members, they had every play centre, dance group, drama club, sports club was shut and closed down. And yet a lot of them had the intention to come back just as soon as they could. Many of them reverted to online. So we were able to signpost people and local families to those activities. And I think it's a kind of responsibility we felt, and as I say, paying it forward a little bit. Now it's coming back, and people are transacting and writing business with us, which is lovely.
Amazing, that's good to hear. And what the other bit I wanted to go on to as well, would you say running a business, it's tough, challenges, ups, downs, etc. Would you say a couple of things really? Has the last 18 months, 2 years been the biggest challenge over your career, or tell me about some other challenges, other failures maybe along the line? How do you cope with that?
I mean, the 2008 onwards was a tough time business-wise in different sectors that I'm involved in, because obviously global recession, and we were, in fact, mostly what we do is B2B, so very rarely do we deal with B2C. That massively impacted during those financial crises. Personal events in life as well. Like I said, the Italian Job 2010 didn't run because we had a tragic, death in the family, and there was no way our focus could be on anything other than that situation. So, but I have to say, I mean, we'll all use these terms: unprecedented, extraordinary. But the last 23 months, nearly 24 months, have been absolutely nuts. And I'm not denying the pandemic exists. Coronavirus exists. But I am absolutely blown away by the dexterity and the nimbleness of individuals and businesses throughout this period. To the extent where I live, the local restaurant clearly was shut, so he went to takeaway, and we did everything we could to support him. One individual business in that way, and I mean that's just one example of so many others that have discovered different areas. I mean, in a way, I always want to try another little kind of one of my little very simple ideas is just that I've completely forgotten now, but that's age.
It's fascinating, like you said, and that sense of I guess over the last 23 months and challenges that we've faced, and many, like you say, ups and downs. Whatever you do, I think it was Kathy Catton who was on here from Brighton Gin. We was talking about it, and she said, I had loads of different plans and risk things in all everything. One other thing I didn't have was global pandemic, and none of us did. And I think, and it goes to prove that none of us actually know what's around the corner. So, I think for me, and what I'm certainly getting from you is that sense of community that people have come together a little bit more. That collaborative sort of essence has been heightened so much over the last 24 months. And we've actually, by doing that, we've got through things together, and as a community, we've survived and become stronger.
I like to think that's happened not just in franchise businesses like ours, but in organisations as well, where people have kind of united, and I mean, within our network, I'm not ashamed to say there was not panic, but it was an incredible amount of anxiety initially as to what was going to happen. Schools were closed. Raring to Go magazines is distributed through schools, so suddenly our channel to market has been cut off. Then every business effectively shut down, so our advertiser base disappeared. But collectively, there was a great sense of calm. Coming together is a really important thing, and that's why working collaboratively and gelling together, meshing everything together works so well. And again, for us, the analogy of the online and the offline meshing together makes it a more rounded, multi-channel approach, of course, with social as well. But none of us in business know what's going to happen tomorrow, potentially, but we've got a fairly good idea. It's
I'm
tough.
interested as well to see, like, from as a business owner, as a leader, and having not just a team of people that work with you, but then you've got other teams within the franchise. So, like you said, your franchise council, if you like. How did, as a leader at that point, because like you said, just purely by the nature of the industry that you was in, there was obviously going to be a lot of worry and anxiety. But so obviously a couple of things, I guess, from your point of view, how do you stay mentally strong and go, I believe it's going to be all right? Did you have them really worried moments? Or
no, absolutely. And to be really honest, Sam, if anyone tells you they didn't, then I think they're kind of just blagging a little bit, because and it's not that you have to come out and admit all these things, but certainly within the franchise network, I've always, again, one of my very simple approaches, communication. So sometimes we get it wrong, but most of the time we get it right. So I just let them know every step of the way what we were doing. When the bounce back loan came along, that was great. That meant that we can bring some cash into the business short term. Then we paid that back, and I told them we're now taking on a C-bill, and that C-bill is going to build the next the web platform. So, I've kept them informed all the way. I haven't gone with a bleeding heart, look at me, poor me, I haven't got any money, but I've just kept them informed of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So within the network was great. Locally, I know you're a massive lover of networking, as am I. I reached out to a few people locally in Brighton and Hove, people like Sandra Murphy, business coach. I've known Sandra for years. We coined a phrase, we should copyright and trademark it, twerking. So talking and walking when we couldn't sit down in a coffee house or in each other's offices. And the first lockdown, we had that lovely blistering sunshine, didn't we? If you remember, back in March, April.
I do. Amazing.
Walking along the seafront with Sandra at a distance, of course, and just inspired by some of the very simple kind of reactions and responses. You know, when you get that directness from someone. And just kind of that affirmation that you're doing things okay. Yeah. And I still say now at the moment, if someone says, how's business, it's okay. And then I suffix that with, but doing okay is more than enough just right now. Yeah. So admire those that are flying, and I'm envious as hell, but you know, those that are just doing okay and carrying on and opening their doors and selling their stuff and working and doing business, they have to be admired equally.
And that's still in my book, actually, that's still, whatever it is, if you survived and we're still here and we're still here to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
We're winning in my book.
And I want to always take a positive from a negative. So for me, I was doing 35,000 miles a year in my car, up and down the motorway, going to a meeting in Newcastle or Manchester. Yeah. And we've used Zoom and online for years, so we just lent on it more heavily. So we uprated our memberships and our subscriptions. And it just made things a lot easier. And I don't think I'm ever going to go back to doing 35,000 miles a year. And I was at home from that first lockdown up until now, every night of the week with my family, around the table, and it was just a tonic, absolute tonic. You know, it was a joy.
There was so much to be told. It's so lovely because there's so many, like you said, I think very similar. We're both positive people, positive mindsets. So you take always every day. I try and take the positives out of it, and opposed to looking at negatives. But it's them things. I will look back as tough as it's been for certainly from a business, from a personal income point of view, and you know, I had some really tough times financially. But ultimately, I've got to spend some magical time with my kids that I would never have had in the past. And you know, I don't think like the homeschooling element of it, I think I told you we're the homeschooling, they was at home with me the first part of it, which was amazing. I don't think academically they learned a lot, but they learned how to cook and they learned some life skills.
Well, I think they're 10 times more valuable because, and with the greatest respect, Sam, your kids are 6 now, so they were 3.5, 4 when all this kicked off. So it's not going to mean they're not going to get into Oxford or Cambridge in 15 years or in 12 years' time. And I think for me it was so important. I reckon a lot of people listening to this will have made the same mistakes as I did. I remember the first days my daughters, who are now 17 and 18, started at primary school. Pride I had walking them in, walking out, and then almost blink, and now they're 17 and 18 and doing their A levels. And you know, one's planning a gap year, and the other one's is planning a university. So it's really made me take stock and value those things that are so important. And family is everything.
Yeah, mate, you're absolutely right. I think personally, I think it's, you know, we talked again a little bit offline, but you know, I guess you run your own business. There's the ambition there, and you strive for them things. But it did lockdown, I guess. You take stock a little bit, and you realise the important things in life, and doesn't mean I don't think I'm any less ambitious, even still maybe more ambitious than I was before, but just trying to be mindful of the fact that what a magical time that was, and look back almost at as tough a time it was still with fondness. Again, looking at the positives out of the last 24 months, I guess, and as opposed just in the negatives.
I hope we all reminisce on these days, on these last 20 in years to come, with some degree of fondness. I know it's been really tough. People's physical, mental health has been absolutely knocked, but no, I totally agree, and I think it's how we measure or value success and wealth. Yeah. So I can have absolutely, if I haven't got a penny in the bank or a penny in my pocket, so I still think I'm the richest man in the world because I've got everything I need within those 4 walls, and that's my wife and 2 daughters. So
that for me is magic, and I think we spoke about this offline. I've spoke a couple of times on the podcast about it, but the definition of success, and it's amazing to hear that because so much is, like my mindset was very much success is how much your financial wealth. Yeah, that measures your. My business is successful. I'm successful because I've got X amount of money, and when you actually take stock of that and you realise that, you know, money is a byproduct of success, but what the success, the narrative in your head of what success actually really means, and ultimately, it's being around people you love,
absolutely,
and surrounding yourself with that, being loved and loving people. I think is, and for me certainly, it got to a point where you go, I'm the most successful man in the world, actually, because I've got all
absolutely,
of them.
and the richest man in the world. And again, you know, as business owners, we all do our cash forecasts and our budgeting and looking at our bottom line. And I love seeing it on LinkedIn, everybody talking about dashboards and graphs and performance this year compared to last year, etc. And at the beginning of lockdown, I got an A5 notepad in front of me, and on the left-hand side, I wrote down top headings, things I just can't do without, thinking, if I've got to cut a lot of cost out of my life here, what are the things I can't do without? So that was the first bit. And the other side was stuff I've got that I could kind of, so stuff I really can't lose, stuff I've got that I don't mind losing. On the left-hand side, there wasn't one single material thing, it was people. It was people. And on the other side, it was everything else that, nice car, nice house, nice clothes, watch, all those other little trimmings that you think, actually, and now I focused on the left-hand page. And it was just, and that was every night dinner together was just, like you said, your kid learning to cook. I mean, I can't wait to come around for dinner, Sam, because I bet they're just going to blow me away.
You're in anytime.
And so, I think we're on the same page when it comes to stuff like that. I think success is in our own minds and our own hearts. And I like you, I think I'm the most successful man in the world.
I love that. I really do. I think it's so important. And I love the listeners, and I'm really keen to find out more people, because everyone I sort of, because one thing I've learned, a lot of books I've read or other podcasts I've listened to, and you sort of ultimately people get into a stage in life where they go. Some people have sold, running businesses that turn over 100 millions and doing really well financially, and or they've sold their business and they've made millions out of it. And I've spoke to them on a podcast, but ultimately they go, that almost becomes a bit of an anticlimax, because I've got all this money, but there's no purpose there. And you go, what is the purpose in? And again, back to the last 24 months, people analyse maybe what more their purpose is in life, because look, I'm surrounded by these people.
No, absolutely, Sam. And I mean, I admire people. I see it on social networking, LinkedIn, and in business generally, people that are working really, really hard and clearly enjoying the spoils of war. But if you ask me if I'd rather have a Porsche 911 now or a month-long holiday at my house in Italy, family home in Italy, with my girls, there was no question. It's done. No. It's
no brainer.
And that time is because of course 17 and 18 now, being in mum and dad's company isn't particularly trendy now. So if they do me a massive favour by coming on holiday with me, I'm quite happy if they come. And actually, to be fair, quite happy if they don't. But that would not be a question for me at all.
I'm with you. I mean, look, talking then, it moves on nicely. We talk about your place in Italy and going on holiday and stuff like that. So let's get back to the Italian job, which is again like it's it's a fundraising event. Started back in the 1990s, as you sort of mentioned. But Keith, why did you start in the first place? What was the aspect? Why was that so important to you to start something like that? Or
my mum and I and the guys that were involved early on, we just kind of had an overwhelming desire to try and do something. So we had restaurant owners, kind of technology people. A lawyer in that group, and then me and my mum. And so we were kind of, not say wealthy, but we were comfortable, and we didn't really want for anything. And we just felt that there was an opportunity for us to do something. And we could have gone and done a fundraising event and raised a few £1,000s, or we could have put this thing together that ultimately that first year raised £70,000, and that absolutely blew us away. And then from that, every year we've netted roughly about £100,000 a year. In donation through to the charity, and we keep all the costs really lean. So now, and for the last 25 years, we've absorbed all of the organisational costs. I mean, I'd love to say we got a big fat sponsor, Sam, but we haven't. We get support. We've had a few very generous local businesses support the Italian job, but we just had an overwhelming desire to kind of use our best resources and our ability to make a small difference, and we got really, really involved. So we support an organisation called Buttle UK now, and they're based in London, but they've got a local spread and appeal around the UK. So if you're a team in Wales or in Dorset or in Sussex or in London or in Birmingham, the Midlands, the money that you raise gets sent to families in crisis in those areas through a grant giving process that they have. And what we really love about Buttle is the fact they've got this endowment. Their founder was a visionary man, set up this endowment, and this endowment just basically feeds and covers all their overheads, all their staff costs, their premises. So it's very rare in fundraising. I only say this after 32 years of experience of fundraising. Very rare to find that 100% of the pound that you give actually gets spent on children's services without some of it being defrayed. Sure. So that's what really is a massive appeal to me. They run a really lean team as well. There's 16 of them, or maybe 20 across the UK. And they've got a lot of big ambitions to make a real difference, and they've redoubled their efforts during the pandemic, and they're giving even more support with even less contribution and voluntary contributions. I've been lucky, in very lucky in life. I've met some absolutely generous people, but generosity in spirit and in physical in terms as well. In 1990, I went and saw John Cooper, who was the originator of the Mini Cooper. He was in Ferring in West Sussex. He was a Honda dealer at the time, but in 1962 he took the original Mini, tinkered with it. He was an engineer. He won the F1 championship twice, 1959 and 1960. So he was an absolute visionary in the world of motorsport. And I went and saw him and said, I'd love to get your involvement with this little idea we got called the Italian Job. And he said, I'd love it, fantastic. And it coincided with the launch of a 1990 limited edition car. So there were some other kind of like tangents that kind of all fused at the right time. And he was absolutely a driving force. He phoned up the people at Rover Group and said, you've got to get behind these guys because this is going to be big.
Wow.
And I found myself in that second year in a meeting with these big marketing, I was 21, Sam, big marketing people at Rover Group, PR people, and they got behind the event massively. And fast forward to now, 2022, the son of John Cooper, Mike, has become and remained a great friend and supporter of the Italian Job. His son Charlie is an ambassador for Mini, and they've just launched a 2022 limited edition Mini Cooper, John Cooper Works hatchback. They've made 740 units because 74 was John Cooper's famous racing number.
Wow.
And they're giving us one of these cars, the Cooper family giving the Italian Job one of these brand new cars to auction off.
Wow.
And the proceeds of that will take us well over that 17k out balance to get us over the £3 million mark. So that's really, really exciting. And that's the generosity. And that's the grandson, Charlie, owns this car. And he said, I just wanted to do something a bit different, a bit special to celebrate his grandfather's 60th anniversary of the Mini Cooper. John died in 2000, but Mike and Charlie have been kind of carrying the mantle ever since. So I feel blessed to know people like that. They're giving us the car's probably worth 35k, and if we position it right with Barron's, the car auction people are doing it no charge either. Just amazing. So
wow. It's again, it's like I love the fact of, from whether it's positivity and different traits, they breed, don't they? So, if you surround yourself with negative people, then you tend to get that there. Positive people, and even with the generosity side of it, like you said, you go, well, look, these have really kindly done this, and then other people see that and want to support, and then look what you've created, and to go on to something where you're not, just short of £3 million. Amazing. Is just mind blowing for someone. Even for me, like I've done some little bits of fundraising over the years, and bits. But just when you told me about it, and how close, I was just like, blow. It's actually blown me away. I think it's incredible.
There's a degree of skill, Sam, just a little bit of skill. The rest of it is good luck and having the brass neck to go and ask the question. So know what Italian families are like. So I've got a cousin of mine who's married to a surgeon who was at school with a boy called, I forget his name now, his first name, but it was Di Montezemolo. And it transpires that this mate of his from school was the brother of Luca Di Montezemolo, who was, you probably know, the chairman of Ferrari, big guy. So through family connections, a couple of conversations, in 2005, after years of trying, we took the Italian Job Minis onto Fiorano circuit in Maranello, which is their test track. This is like, hallowed tarmac, this is asphalt. It's just, and it was just an amazing thing. And that, again, just asking, and...
there's something really powerful, for all the listeners, people people thinking about starting their own business, young entrepreneurs looking to get in, how much they can take away from listening to you talk about a couple of things. One, at 21, like you say, at such a young age, but having the confidence, I guess, and the belief that you're going, I'll go and sit in front of these people. And was there must have been, I mean, going back to that time, was you a bit in awe, that whole imposter syndrome thing? Or
I don't think imposter syndrome existed back in the day. But
it's a new phrase.
If it did, I wouldn't have been able to Google it. I'd have to go to a thesaurus and look and see what it was. But I remember sitting in the meeting with Rover Group, and I flew over in 2001, just before the new Mini was launched. They invited me over to Munich, to a meeting in Munich. I speak Italian and I can get by in French, but German, I know nothing. Anyway, they all obviously spoke incredible English. And at one point, I'd never been in one of these kind of big meetings before. And well, no, this was Rover Group. So this is back in Rover Group, and they said, right, if we could all just introduce ourselves. So I just turned to the person to when I said, "Hi, I'm Freddie from the Italian Job," and they obviously meant, "No, can you stand up and say, hi, I'm Freddie?" So a little bit embarrassing. Where's the hole? I've just dug a hole. I'm jumping. So you feel like a bit of a Burke, but. Yeah, no, I think
learning curves though, things like that. Like, what, but having, I guess, for me, it's that belief, having the guts to actually, because how many people go, oh, bloody hell, like, you know, what I mean, I'm not sure about that, or come up, but just having the go, yeah, look.
I think a little bit of blagging is nice as well. I remember I went to I was invited to a black tie do once, and I had to go on my own because my wife couldn't come. Yeah. And it was a big automotive thing organised by Rover Group. And as I walked in the room, you kind of like, you sign in and say who you are, and they give you a little ID badge, etc. Yeah. Then I started waving at fictitious people in the room, and no one there. And then everyone starts looking at me and thinking, "Oh, you must know loads of people." I was going, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute." No clue. And so, I mean, and having a lot of fun, obviously, and being a bit of a blagger in that respect. But yeah, you learn. You have to learn as you go along. And
oh, mate, it's fascinating. And like I say, it's just that. Like I say, at that young age, having that sort of mindset and being able to do it, and it's just, but just actually, I think it's such a. Again, we spoke a little bit about offline, but the power of a couple of things that you've alluded to over the course of the conversation about communication. Obviously, back to how you talked about culture with your team and the importance of that communication, but just being able to, like I said, going into any situation, actually just asking a question. Going and being able to have that conversation and build a relationship, because this is something that you don't teach in schools, is it?
No.
You can't, like, you know. How do you? It's just the way that you've got about you, where you're able to, you know, look, I'm not frightened to go and ask a question. They can only say no.
Well, absolutely. I mean, what can they do? Yeah. I mean, they're not going to take my legs away. I'm not going to end up having to go home and cry in my bed. You go and ask the question. Yeah. And I mean, I think I have in my head always these 2 or 3 real buzzwords. One is kindness. Be kind, because then they'll be kind back. Yeah. Empathy. Really be interested and understand. It's not all business. Italian meetings are fantastic because you spend the first 3/4 of the hour allocated finding out about their families, their wife, what they ate for dinner last night, what wines they've been drinking, how their golf is. In 15 minutes, we better rush through this because otherwise I've got to go. And humility as well, Sam, is really important, I think. And I'm fiercely proud of what the Italian Job's done. So, we are knocking £3 million. I've got absolutely passion running through my veins for that success. Yeah. But I'm never going to shout about it at all over my email footer. Doesn't say Freddie St.George responsible for or whatever. I was told I should put MBE on my email footer, and I'm thinking, oh, come on, I shouldn't do that, really. But but being humble, and I think I told you I met a guy called Nicholas Winton, who was they called him the English Schindler back in the Second World War. He helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young children escape Nazi Germany and come to the UK. And I presented the Italian Job. He was a member of a Rotary group in Maidenhead. I'm not, but I went and I was invited to go and talk about the Italian Job, and they needed any excuse to go and talk about the Italian Job. And there was lunch as well, so it was amazing. So in this room of 25 people, I did my 25-minute, lots of slides talking about my mum, how it started, where we go. And at the end, this old guy with a Zimmer frame, he must have been 101 at the time, but properly on it, like real proper compos mentis, came and said to me, "Young man, I'd like to shake your hand." I didn't know who he was. I said, I'm pleased to shake your hand. He said to me, in my experience, he said, I admire what you've achieved and what you're achieving with the Italian Job and the fact that you are very humble about it. He said, in my opinion, in life, those that shout the loudest make the least difference, whilst those that make the most difference make the least noise. And it just resonated. And then I asked one of the guys, who was that? And he explained who it was. And his entire life, he didn't ever big himself up and say, this is what I've done, but deservedly so, a huge humanitarian. And those things are really, they resonate and they stick with you. And you think, yeah, I like that. And I admire everyone that does, and anyone that goes out and fundraises, and whether they raise £1 or £1 million, in my book, absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it's needed.
It's incredible to hear. And like you say, that there is something about that, I guess, in the humility, because there's just the nature of society, the way we are now, that with social media, etc. There's so much pressure, I guess, on especially the younger generation, but almost that we've got to have this validation from other people, and I think, look, mate, what you've done is amazing. It should be shouted about, and I want to shout about it for you. And and I think, but I think it's incredible, and I think that's fine to do that. But I think you're right. There's something amazing and endearing about people that are humble and not like you said, and go about things. Just a couple of things we mentioned previously: integrity, those type of words, and kindness, and they're just important and fundamentally for whatever you do as a person in life, but certainly within a business sphere, absolutely. But
100%. And I mean, I know that the difference that the efforts that we Mum and I, and everyone that's taken part in the Italian job have made, and I just don't feel the need to stand on the rooftop and shout about that. I will shout about the Italian job at every opportunity and say, anyone that's listening to this, if you've got a Mini, if you've got a son or a daughter with a Mini on the drive, nick it, come on the Italian job and join us. And I mean, Sam, we spoke a bit before. We try and put on a really interesting itinerary. So we try and make it's a real food and wine lovers extravaganza, and we take you off the beaten track to places that you would never dream of existed. And we just want more teams. So, but for that, I'll shout all day long.
Look, I would looking at the itinerary and what you sort of shared with me. I urge anyone to get involved.
Thank you.
All over it. But we've obviously talked about the MBE, and you just alluded to it then, but. Which is what an amazing achievement and so well deserved as well. But would you say that over the span of your career, of your business journey, would you say that's your greatest achievement, or what?
It's a huge. I genuinely consider. Don't forget, I'm English. My mother's Italian. I was born here, and my mother's Italian. So it means different things, but. Absolutely a huge honour, and overwhelmed also by the fact that I was nominated by the first sponsor of the Italian job, which was a company called Smudge Products. They make embroidered T-shirts and polo shirts, and we approached them in 1990, asked that question, and said, "Look, we need 110 polo shirts. Any chance?" And he said, "Well, how much is the budget?" I said, "Nothing," and he said, "Oh, go on then." Then he did it, and when he's been a sponsor and supported the Italian job ever since, and incredibly generous all those years. And as with networking generally, people become friendly, they become friends. And Graham, the MD of Smudge, was my best man. And he's just an incredible guy. And he's the one that spent 18 months, nearly 2 years, in getting together all the information that's needed and made the nomination for the award. I went to tell him that my mum had received an MB because he nominated us both. Yeah. And he burst into tears, and I said, "Oh, Graham, it's not that emotional, mate. I mean, it's really good, but there's no." And he said, "It's the fruition of 2 years of real effort, and his sense of ownership of that was really tangible." And for us, it's been a huge honour, but we share it with everyone that's ever been involved with the Italian job. They've entered 1 time, 10 times, 20 times, or every sponsor, everyone that's put money into the pot and supported. I mean, for me, I think back to the first time when we had a dinner and we announced that we'd smashed through the £1 million mark. So that was back in 98, 99. In 10 years running the event, we smashed our first million, and then we put our target. Let's go on to the second one. Now we're very nearly at the third one, and I hope we got it. It won't be too long before we crack that fourth one. And the difference that money has made on the ground to countless families and children, those most vulnerable in society. I don't want to get all low, down here, but there is an absolute need, and I've had a joyful time every single second of the Italian job.
That's such an amazing thing. I listen to you talk about it, and again, like you said, your enthusiasm for it is so inspiring. I mean, you listen to you talk about, but I think just. We get one life as far as we know, and you go through it, and it was amazing. Just thinking, I'd like to do things with purpose and try and make a difference, and knowing that just to look back and think we have made so much of a difference to so many people. It's incredible. But what's great about it, what I love about it, is that you've done it with so much fun on the way, and so like we was talking about the amount of stories that in another 20, 30 years when we're sitting having a coffee and a glass of wine, and you look back and go, oh, what about that time? And when you've done that with all the people
Sam,
involved.
I met my wife. She came on the Italian Job in 91 with a girlfriend, and we became friends. And then suddenly, not say suddenly, 6 years later, we were married. Our daughters are the fruit of the Italian Job, for example. My business partner that I met recently sadly passed away, but that was due to the Italian Job.
Amazing.
And everyone, and I'll be honest, I don't hold back. So we've got Gemini in Shoreham, print company, huge supporters of ours professionally in business with Raring to Go. They do all our print. Sure. So we're an important client for them, but they're an important supplier, more than a supplier. They're a really tight part of our community. I don't shy away from asking them to give me stuff for the Italian Job. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's and they do, and they're incredibly generous. So and so many lovely, wonderful people that we've met on the time. But we genuinely have had a riot the whole 32 amazing. Years. Really,
it's brilliant. Look, just moving on, 'cause we're going to come on to a couple of last little bits, but just one thing. Again, we've talked about culture, which is the thing I always talk about on a podcast. But for me, the other side of stuff that I like to find out. So you obviously you run your own business. You obviously, the Italian Job isn't just a one-off thing, or that obviously it takes a lot of organisation, a lot of prep, and so much that goes into that. So just keen to, over the years, the work-life balance. How does that work with you? Have you achieved the work-life balance, you think? Do you... and if you have, what have you done?
I'd love to say I have, but I think I failed appallingly, to be fair. I've put early years before I was married, I would spend every weekend driving to a car show, a mini event to promote the Italian Job, talk about the Italian Job. And then obviously got married. I'm lucky that my wife is so understanding, but I think it's because we met through the Italian Job. She gets how important it is to me and to my mum. But I find even now, we meet for a family dinner, even on Christmas Day, we end up talking about the Italian Job. And of course my sister and my children think, hold on a minute, this is Christmas Day. But it has a tendency to completely overwhelm and engulf you. But I've got a great life, I have to say. I'm not suggesting, I don't work, I work long hours and I work long days. But I love it. I think if I could go back and change it a bit more, I would do things slightly different when it comes to my daughters and being a bit more active and involved in school and secondary school. But no, it's a great cliche, but it's so difficult to do. It's from an entrepreneur or from a business owner's perspective, that's half the reason for doing it. But actually, we all get roped, overwhelmed and carried along by the tsunami of business and of pressure and then success and then potential failure.
Because it's all on you, isn't it? Ultimately, and the decisions is difficult. Like we sort of spoke, like the difficulty we both have with trying to switch off from things because you struggle not to, and because there's that pressure on there. But like you say, on the flip side, there is the other element of being your own boss and your own business. Able to maybe attend some school plays that you might have not been able to if you was in a position. I've been fortunate. I do work long hours, but I'm able to sometimes flip between that and be able to be at them things that I wouldn't be able to. If it means I've got to work till 2:00 in the morning that day, it's my choice to do that. So I guess that's it. But it's like I say, it's interesting when I talk to people. It's one of them things that. It comes with sacrifice. Running your own business does come with some great advantages, but with sacrifice as well. And
I think there's an element of loneliness sometimes when you run a business, and if you're the kind of the main the person in that business, and you don't want to take it home and spread that with family necessarily, because you don't need to. That front door for me has to be it's the portcullis and the drawbridge and the moat. So once I cross that and in the house, that's family time. Has to be. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think I was unemployable at the age of 21, to be honest, and I don't think I could be employed now. And it's choices, isn't it? Life is about choices, and I think as we get older, we recognise what the potential consequences could be of those choices. When we're young, we're a little bit reckless. I remember used to drive over at 100 miles an hour thinking I was immortal. Now I make a bit more kind of like measured choices and decisions. But it's enormous fun. Yeah,
of course. Look, before we go into the last little bits, tell me what does the future hold? Should I say Frederic?
Federico.
Federico.
Yeah, you
should I
can.
say?
Yeah,
I didn't want to say Freddie, because in case your mum, when she
she will
listens,
hear this. Although she, I mean, I could.
So what does the future hold for Federico?
I want to obviously push hard and forward on Raring to Go and on Mojo, and really occupy that space, but really, really well, and have a really engaged and enfranchised franchise network that are loving the choices that they've made. Italian job, I'd love to put a lot more time and effort into, and I mean, I've great ideas, but it's just time, and something always has to give. I've recently been invited by Buttle to join their board, which I'm very seriously considering. There's a little time requirement there, but I think it. I think we've got to, if we're going to make commitments to organisations like charitable organisations, it's really good to get under the skin and understand how they work, how they function. I'd like to do that. I'd like to spend more time in Italy, Sam. 2 years I haven't really been to Italy, and that's the kind of like, that is like proper withdrawal symptoms now. I've got aunts that will just, I've got nothing in, and then rustle up a fantastic banquet, and I'm waiting to get back to that. So hopefully this summer will be the first time. For 2 or 3 weeks, just kind of lazing around. But technology is great and keeps you in touch. But I'm very disciplined on holiday, and I check my emails first thing in the morning. I'm an early riser, and then I leave them to the next day. So 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, always up. Check those emails. Anything needs action, do it. But I've got a brilliant team, head office team, really, really brilliant team, who are properly behind it. And they, again, cut them and they bleed Mojo and Raring to Go. Honestly, they're amazing.
But then that's again down to so much that's got to be there. Like just listening to you talk and for that whole conversation, is so much of that's down to your leadership and surrounding yourself with good people. Whatever you've done, whether it's been with the Italian job, with Mojo and with Raring to Go, and it's just surrounding yourself with good people, and that's half the battle in business. Isn't
always
it?
And letting people make decisions as well. So I get a phone call from someone in accounts. What should we do about this? And my stock answer, I hate admin and I hate all that nonsense. And it kind of, not that I'm scared of it, I just don't like it. So I say, Claire, what would you do if you were me? Well, I'd do this. I said, well, there we are. There's the answer. And she does it, and she owns that. Then the next time she just lets me know that's what she's done. And I think that crossover of trust and faith in everyone, in one another, is really important.
And another thing, I guess that it's allowing people to make their own mistakes. Same, I guess, it'd be interesting to see about even with your kids, like allowing them to make mistakes and fail, and because that's how we build resilience, isn't it?
Absolutely. With kids, it's different because I think I said to you earlier. I went from being Superman for my daughters to everything I said they hang on like Daddy just said that. That's something. To now, I get grunts back in return. So and I think they just disregard it because I've said it. But no, within the business, I mean, I had a moment a few weeks ago with my general manager in our head office in Birmingham, and she told me that about a situation that had happened. And what she'd done, and I simply said, a bit kind of tongue-in-cheek, I said, well, thanks for phoning me so we could discuss that. She'd made a decision, it had been action and done, and she went, oh, what do you mean? I said, no, I said it as a joke, but I mean it honestly. You've taken the initiative, you've made a decision, you knew that because we know each other well, and that's the thing, getting to understand each other. So I think that's really important in business as well, Sam, knowing your people really well, knowing who their kids are, their grandkids are, where they go on holiday, what they like fishing, or they go caravanning, or whatever it may be, and then we get to know each other and trust each other's decisions as well. And there's nothing better than the boss phoning up and getting told off by the GM because I've made a mistake. I absolutely love that.
I'll take it. Oh, mate, it's fascinating. Well, look, we're coming to the last couple of questions now. So just before we go into the last one, tell me one piece of advice. What one piece of advice would you give to your 16-year-old self?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Honestly, I learned so much. I mean, I was terrified about borrowing money early on. But 16, no, but the first few years of business. But recognising the increase in pace and speed, having a slightly more frivolous attitude towards borrowing could have had, or a less tense or anxious attitude towards borrowing initially.
Sure.
I could have scaled everything far quicker. Right. I don't regret not doing so. This Siebel that we've got, like many listeners today listening to this will be the first time they've ever had to go to the bank and bring money into the business. Not to rush too much either,
Yeah.
I think is another thing, because we're quite impetuous as youngsters. Like, we want it all tomorrow. We want,
of course.
and I guess what we kind of touched upon earlier about the really important things in life, and recognising, if I could have recognised back then that money was nice, but actually was totally replaced by the value you have with those people in your life, friends, family. That would have maybe been a slightly different start. But yeah.
Well, mate, what a great way to bring it to an end. And listen, I knew it would be, like I said, you meet people. I'm a strong believer you meet people in life and who you click with and connect with, and you certainly over the last couple of weeks, like since we've sort of met up, you're certainly one of them people, and what you've done and what you are doing with the Italian job and in business in general is absolutely inspiring. It really is, and I'm so grateful for coming on. And we've got one more question before we do wrap up. Is basically I've taken this from one of the podcasts that inspired me. Really, one of the podcasts that inspired me to do this was from the Diary of CEOs. I've got a previous guest of mine to ask a question for you, and I'll ask you to do the same at the end before you leave. Is leave a question for my next guest. But so one of my previous guests has left this one for you, and it says, "I know there are many aspects of creating success. If you could list just one thing that had the largest impact of creating success, what would it be?"
Oh. You better say that again, Sam. Sorry, because it's
I'm saying
a couple of parts.
So I know there are many aspects of creating success. So if you could list just one thing that had the largest impact on creating success, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
They
throw these in.
The largest impact. I don't know. I mean, I could maybe answer it in terms of what's driven me harder and more, and that without question was the birth of my first daughter at the age of which 18 years ago now. That was kind of like a real kind of sit up and smell the coffee time, because that was up until then it had all been a bit jokey and a little bit kind of easy and no real pressure. Now you look at this little baby and this bundle and think, wow. At minimum, it's not minimum, but for the rest of her life, I'm her dad, and that's my responsibility. So that really drove me forward. But like we said as well, I think people, and I'm not knocking anyone that measures their success in bank balances or cash in their war chest, but for me, I've never measured success in monetary terms, and I think because I've been surrounded by a lot of people that have, and I've seen that that old cliche, money can't buy you love, and it definitely can't. It buys you a lot of lovely things. But the unconditional love of family is for me 1,000 times more than that.
Mate, amazing. Look, great way, like I say, great way to finish. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to come. And I'm sure the listeners will be inspired by your story and loads of great takeaways as well. Like you say, it's a lot of the simple things that you just go, if you do them right, there's so much to take away there. So, mate, thanks so much for coming on. If any of them listeners out there get involved in the Italian job, what an amazing event it sounds like. I can't wait.
We'd love to see him, Sam. And I want to say a heartfelt thanks to you for enabling me, allowing me to come here today, and for taking my call and saying let's meet for a coffee. And I just want to nudge you that I'm looking forward to dinner, because I think that Sienna and Luca cooking would be absolutely fantastic. So,
mate, you're welcome anytime at that. So yeah, we'll get you around soon.
Bless you, Sam. Thank you so much. Honestly, really appreciate it.
Mate, good luck, mate.